Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we have a 2012 Gibson Moderne reissue. These guitars, they're kind of freaky fish things, but let's go ahead and learn a bit about the history of them. For the 1957 NAMM Show, 4 new designs came from Gibson: the Flying V, Explorer, Futura, and Moderne. Now you might recognize 2 of those, but the other 2 remain in obscurity for Gibson's history. In fact, the name Moderne did not actually exist until the 80s. This instrument remains the holy grail for every guitar collector because there is no documented example of an original 50s one. In fact, we're not even sure if one even exists. It's rumored that there's about 12 of them out there, but photos have never been found. Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top fame claims that he owns one, but doesn't let anybody see it. So he might just be pulling people's legs with that. So if a 50s one doesn't exist, when did these first come out? Ibanez made them. Since there was a 50s patent, apparently the Ibanez, back when they were just copying designs in like the 70s, they made them first. And then Gibson made their own version in the 80s under the Heritage series. So as far as a Gibson branded Moderne, that's the first time you could get one. There's rumored to be between 143 to 500 of those instruments made. They were a pure Carina body, a Carina neck, and a rosewood fretboard, and they were offered in 3 main finishes. There's the natural, which there's the most of, black, and white. However, there's also 2 to 3 uncommon colors that there were very few made. There's a few candy apple red versions, 1 lone cherry sunburst rumored to exist, and Tim Shaw swears he remembers seeing a Pelham blue one being made. If you're interested in seeing and hearing original 80s versions, thanks to the help of a fan who brought his collection over, I did document all of those. Generally, on the used vintage market, those will run you between $3,500 to $6,000 depending on finish and condition. But since the 80s, these things just kind of disappeared. But thanks to, vintage starting to become popular, people finding these things, just being curious about them, learning about the history of them through the internet, Gibson released them again in 2012. These are sometimes referred to as the Moderne XL. I'm not really sure why, because that's not in any of Gibson's official marketing for this one, but that's what Reverb calls them. But this was a limited edition run, and they were available in trans amber and black with tortoiseshell pickguard. So what's different between this version and the Heritage 80s series? Well, a lot. First off, this is a mahogany body instead of Carina, which in my eyes is a little bit of a shame, but at the same time, it's cool because if you're a Moderne fan, you can have one of these and an 80s one, and they're going to be completely different sounding guitars because the wood's different and the pickups are different. I mean, this one will have 57 classics. The original has Tim Shaw's. Now, both sets of pickups are trying to emulate the PAF, so similar in that aspect. Your bridge will be different. These guys have the Nashville, whereas the 80s version has the ABR1. These ones have speed knobs with thumb bleeds, the rounded off version, whereas the originals had top hats with thumb bleeds. The Heritage series featured a rosewood fretboard, whereas this particular reissue has granadillo, which looks very similar. But perhaps the biggest thing is the headstock. The original 80s run had what is considered the Gumby headstock to some people. Essentially, imagine this shape, but just don't have this cutaway on it and round it off. It looks like the head of Gumby. Also, instead of the gold silk screen, it had a large Gibson badge on it. Now those are prone to breaking, so that's probably why they didn't do that, and counting the fact that they lost the spot where they would put it on. But the other big reason for why they probably went with what is considered the Futura headstock is the original 80s version is really freaky. It has to use string trees to get the strings in the nut correctly. They had to use a freaky truss rod cover that I've nicknamed the Royal Guard hat. And this reissue is the first time the word moderne actually appears on one of these things. So that's a lot of differences. They might be the same body shape, but everything else is pretty much different. These were first announced on Gibson's website on March 20th with a suggested retail price of $25.99. After this, there was something called the Gibson Moderne of Doom, which was a Zakk Wylde reissue, and that was the cheapest Moderne you could ever buy. Those are kind of freaky. They have this weird stacked top to them. But what's kind of exciting is 2019, Gibson redid these. I believe it is just a Zzounds exclusive run though. The 2019s, they're pretty much the exact same thing as this run. Side by side, you'd be like, that must be the same guitar. But if you look at the specs, they're slightly different. Instead of Granadillo, you have your more traditional rosewood, which might be considered a plus and make them more collectible. The bridge pickup is not a 57 Classic, it's a 57 Classic Plus. And they took your thumb bleeds away. The 2019 run was also offered in Trans Amber, but the different color this time is Aged Cherry, and that's like a really dark cherry color. So from a collectability standpoint, it's always best to get the solid color Modernes, because even though most people prefer the natural to see the wood grain, those colors become rare with time because of that fact. That's the reason why the solid colored 80s versions sell for more. But Zzounds also did an Epiphone run that has the Carina body, which you think they would have done it the other way. It's probably just cheaper to get Carina overseas. And the coolest thing about that Epiphone version is they brought back the badge. And what they did is they just laid it sideways on the face of the headstock. It's those two little features that actually makes me want to buy that one instead of the new Gibson version. So now that we know a little bit about the history of the Moderne and some of its reissues, let's go ahead and tear this one apart and look at the specs. All taken apart, here's what we've got. We have the 57 Classic in the neck and just a regular 57 Classic in the bridge. In the circuit, the pickups read 3.81 in the middle position, 7.61 in the bridge, and about 7.65k ohms in the neck. Taking a look in the pickup cavities, you can see that they just route a single channel right here. That way the pickup leads can go directly to the electronics. That way there's nothing underneath the pickguard, so if you want to remove it, you'll just be left with a bunch of holes. And here's what the pickguard looks like in and of itself. Inside the neck pickup cavity, you can see evidence of a dull router bit that wasn't cleaned up. I see that all the time. As well as the Trans Amber stamp that says TA, kind of hard to see. Here's the bridge cavity, more of the same. I cannot make out what that one is, but probably has something to do with being a Moderne. The bridge that was used on these is the regular Nashville styled bridge. And the tailpiece is branded Advanced Plating Inc., and it is a full-weight tailpiece. Now, despite looking like rosewood, this is not rosewood. It is Granadillo. Now, I love this fretboard because it's got a lot of beautiful natural wood grain, and I love these areas. It's kind of exotic looking. I'm really not opposed to this type of wood. And here you can see the truss rod cavity. Doesn't look like this one's ever been adjusted. The tuners for these are the Gibson Clusen styled deluxe tuners. And you can see your serial number is stamped vertically. Oh boy. Somebody didn't think this out very well, but I'll just leave it at that. By the way, this is not the original design for the back plate either. It was initially like a triangle shape, just rounded off.
But inside here, you have 3 Gibson branded pots, your output jack,
another fun
and
fact
your
is
3-way
the
toggle
Epiphone
switch.
version
The
doesn't do
specs
this,
for these
but the
are a
reissue, they
2-piece
did the
mahogany
same
body
shape. Apparently
with a
nobody
1-piece mahogany
rethought
neck
that design.
and the Granadillo fretboard we were talking about.
Now that we've seen pretty much everything about this guitar and learned its history, let's go ahead and hear how it sounds. we know how this instrument sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. This one was sold to me as mint condition. Yeah, it's not, but it's in pretty good shape. You can see you've got some light string change scratches on the face of the headstock. Truss rod works just fine. I just conditioned this fretboard, so that's good to go. Polished up your frets. There's really no fret wear to speak of. It wasn't played that much. You can see the gold on the pickup covers as well as on the bridge and tailpiece. It's fairly worn, but it gives it a nice aged vibe. On the body, there are some dings, especially down here. You can see that large one right there. What's kind of nice about these dings, though, is they're not always ever present. It's only when the light shines on them. But they are there, and they might bug you, so I want you to know about them. Your pickguard also has some scratches on it. Back of the headstock, we have a Made in USA 2012 stamp along with the serial number. It's kind of hard to read the beginning digits, but it is there. This is definitely a 60s neck profile, but it's rounded, so it's not like super pencil thin or anything. I don't notice any major blemishes on the neck. The only thing that keeps this thing from being original is there's one Schaller strap button on this for some reason. They left the other one on there. I don't know what the point of that is, because if that one's locked on but this one breaks off, your guitar's still gonna fall. But in the case, I do have the counterpart that locks onto that for your strap, so you'll probably have to buy another one if you wish to gig this guitar. But the back, it just has some light impressions. Nothing too bad. Sides of the instrument are in good shape here. Just average light wear. I don't think this guitar was necessarily played much. It was owned by a Billy Gibbons fan, so I think that's why he got it, but didn't necessarily play it that much. Looking under Blacklight, you can see it glows a little bit. Also glows a little bit more right there, simply because somebody's sweaty arm kind of absorbs into the finish over time, but nothing too bad. Looks like the edges are also looking good here, as well as the back. You can see the same phenomenon going there. That's where it rubs against you. And the back of the neck is also looking to be in good shape, with no breaks, cracks, or repairs, and a good headstock. This instrument comes in its original case. You can see it's got scratches from like storage wear, maybe even some light usage, but it still protects your guitar very well. You have 3 latches on the front, no combo lock or anything, and a functioning handle. And the interior is white, form fit to the Moderne shape. You can see there's some light staining on the top, and the impression of the Moderne, that's kind of cool. Almost looks like one of them modern flying V's. The pull tab for the case is broken. It would normally have been right there. They just kind of pinch the material here and you can still open it. You've got the original 1-ounce silica packet. And here's that pull tab if you can figure out how to reinstall it. And the one lone Schaller counterpart for your strap. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this Moderne 2012, feel free to check out that link in the description that will take you to the Reverb for Sale ad. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.